Now, President Trump likes to call the media fake news and say that, oh, they're fake news. They're making up stories about me. They're trying to destroy me in the press. They're so mean. They're such terrible people. Now, he says this without any sort of evidence to back up those claims. And yet, whenever he says that, it actually seems to be impacting people. It actually seems to be an effective strategy. And let me show you why this is an effective strategy. According to a new Politico Morning Consult poll, nearly half of all voters, 46%, now believe that the news media is now fabricating stories about President Trump and the administration. So just think about that, right? Almost half of all American voters are like, yeah, news is making up bad things about Trump. Sad. Really? Now, only 37% of voters say that the media do not fabricate stories. That's a disaster. And 17% are undecided, so they don't know. Again, 46% of all voters, they think the media is sitting there in the back room saying, okay, what kind of crap should we make up about Trump? That's an absolute disaster and an absolute failure. Now, look, this is not about bias, right? Now, does the media have a bias? I think we all know they do. Of course they have a bias. Now, there's many outlets out there, CNN, MSNBC, for example. Do they have a bias? Yes. What is that bias? Is it a conservative bias or a liberal bias? No, I actually think that it's an establishment bias. They love people in power. They love sucking up and being nice to people in power because that allows them access. And besides, whatever administration is in charge, they're going to be able to get favors from. So there's a reason that they are biased towards the establishment. Now, the establishment does not like Donald Trump, so it would make sense that, yes, they're mean to Donald Trump. Does that mean this is all fake news? No, of course not. And look, again, you can only look at actual facts that we have about Donald Trump to prove that a lot of these stories that are coming out about Trump are absolutely true. I mean, for example, do they make up the stuff that Donald Trump tweets? No, you can go and check his Twitter account. Those tweets are still there. Did they make up the Access Hollywood tape? No, you could go and hear it. That's something that he said. Billy Bush got fired for being a part of that tape. And what we do to Trump made him president. Did they make up all the huge amount of sexual harassment lawsuits against Donald Trump that he has settled? No. Did they make up the bankruptcies? No, of course not. Look, the media is not sitting in smoke-filled rooms creating hit pieces out of thin air. That's not what they're doing. Yes, they are mean to Trump. Does that mean that they're, actually creating stuff out of thin air to go and attack Trump? No, that's not it at all. Now, do the news reporters make mistakes and sometimes misreport things? Obviously, of course. I've done it before. I've made mistakes. Obviously, I've reported wrong on things. Is it because of, out of malice? No. It's that the news travels really, really fast. Details change and people make mistakes, right? So I'm just letting you guys know that. Now, back to the poll. Let's go to the very predictable breakdown of the people who believe that the media is actually going and creating fake news about Donald Trump. Now, the poll says more than 3/4 of Republican voters, 76%, think the news media invent stories about Trump and his administration, compared with only 11% who don't think so. Those people, gone. We've lost them. They're not there anymore. They're not living in the same world of facts that the rest of us are living in. It's amazing to me. I mean, that's why you can't have a conversation with a conservative. I know, I've tried. As somebody who supports Trump, hey, did you hear that he did this and this? What's your opinion on it? Oh, it's fake news. Never happened. Really? I've got proof. I've got the tweet right here. No, fake news. It's fake news. It's all fake. It's not real. They're just making stuff up. You've got to be kidding me. And look, I shouldn't be surprised. Honestly, I'm not. And look, it's because the right has been doing fake news for so long that they've convinced their audience On the right, with a lot of these different news stations, for example, Fox News, they've convinced everybody that no, it's not us who are lying. It's they're the ones who are lying because they report things to the opposite of us. Let me give you an example. Abby Huntsman on food stamps, right? She actually did a segment on food stamp fraud that was wildly misleading. Now, this was based on a Breitbart article, which claimed that food stamp fraud is at record levels, all-time high, right? Now, is that true? No, absolutely not. Food stamp fraud is actually at an all-time low. Not only that, let's go to Hannity, right? Hannity claimed that President Obama, during his term, wanted to take in 250,000 Syrian and Iraqi refugees. That is a lot of people. Is it true? No, not even remotely. Actually, he wanted to take in, at most, 10,000 Iraqi and Syrian refugees. How about Iran? The claim that, no, we gave them $150 billion for no reason. You know what the truth is? It wasn't our money that we gave them. That was their money. What we did is that we took it and we froze it. We're like, we're not going to give you your money. We've got your money. Ha ha. Now you need to do exactly what we tell you, and then we'll think about releasing your money to you. And you know what? Hey, they did. This had to do with the Iran deal, with their nuclear program. Now, thanks to that deal, that gives international inspectors unprecedented access to Iran's nuclear program, we found that, yes, they are in compliance of this program. They're following our rules and our directives. And so what we did is that in a gesture of good faith, we said, okay, you can have your money back. That's what that's about. On and on. And I could sit there all day and point out places where on the right where they actually do make up stories out of whole cloth, all in order to attack liberals. Now, speaking of liberals, this is actually really depressing. Among Democrats, 1 in 5 think the media make up stories, but 65% majority think they do not. Now, that is 20% of Democrats. That's a bit of a disaster. Now, I do kind of understand a little bit where they're coming from, though, because I think a lot of them are angry at the media for having an establishment bias. Now, I happen to go after them all the time for having that establishment bias. But again, having a bias is not the same as just making up fake stories out of whole cloth. It's not the same. You can have an opinion, and that opinion can be wrong, but it's an opinion, okay? And that doesn't, it's not the same thing as inventing facts to fit your narrative, okay? But what this also shows is that both sides are susceptible to fake news. And I mean, look, for example, while I generally agree that there is, or believe that there is there was a Russian attempt to influence our election, that doesn't mean that every story that they published in the Washington Post, for example, was, or the New York Times, that doesn't mean every story about Russia is true. And newspapers, for example, have had to retract several stories about, different stories about Russian hacking or different ways that Russia might have influenced the election. Like, oh, Russia might have used Pokemon Go. Really? Do you have any proof about that? Seriously? There is room to question, certainly. And there are unsubstantiated claims sometimes that, you know, get reported. So, look, I understand why some of the Democratic voters are very, you know, distrustful of the news. I understand completely. And look, cable news, it's undeniable that they've been very, very strong on Trump, very tough on Trump since the election. Now, that's interesting because before the election, they were helping the DNC with their Pied Piper strategy. So I get it. I get it. Now, that doesn't mean that they make up stories or old stories on Trump on purpose, okay? Now, I think some of the media just jump on a narrative and they don't do their full diligence and they don't vet sources. That's not the same as making things up out of whole cloth. Now, more disastrous numbers. 44% of independent voters think the media make up stories about Trump, and 31% think they do not. So we've nearly lost independence on that issue, which is crazy. That's not good. That's not good at all. Independents are actually incredibly important to elections, more so than they ever have been, as they now make up more of a majority. Now, finally, when asked, when asked about whether or not they're creating fake news, Trump says, absolutely, yes. And what should we do about it? He says that the federal government should be allowed to punish organizations that he says make up stories about him. Now, in this poll, they asked people about this. Now, 28% think the government should have the power to revoke broadcast licenses of major news organizations that it says are fabricating news stories about a president or the administration, while 51% think the government should not be able to do that, and another 21% are undecided. More than two-thirds of Democrats, 68%, think the federal government should not have the power to revoke broadcast licenses of those organizations. But more Republicans, 46%, think the government should have that power than the third of GOP voters who don't think so. So, okay. So this is what this actually comes down to. Now, like I said, I'm of the opinion that I think most people, most news organizations do not come out, at least when it comes to, major like CNN, MSNBC, etc. They're not sitting around in smoke-filled rooms trying to come up with fake news about Trump. Again, do they misreport things? Absolutely. Do they jump on unverified sources sometimes? Yes, we've seen that happen before. The problem that I'm seeing here, though, is, okay, so sometimes they do. Does that mean we should give the government power to be able to shut down those news agencies? And I do not think, though. I don't think so. So let me address to people, both Democrats and Republicans, that are like, yeah, we should get the government to pull licenses of organizations that publish so-called fake news. That's un-American. You see, we have this little thing called the First Amendment. Hey, Republicans, I'm talking to you here. That amendment is located right before the Second Amendment. It's literally the first one before the Second Amendment. What it does is that it establishes a free press. That is vital to democracy. In fact, Thomas Jefferson said, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Well, if you allow an administration to pull a license because, oh, they're putting out fake news about me, well, that would limit the free press immensely. This is a terrible idea, and like I said, this is un-American. And where are the right-wing free speech people on this, by the way? Should be all over this and say, no, the government shouldn't be able to do that. No, of course not. There are people that want to give power to the federal government to shut down people that run negative stories about them, whether or not they're fake. That's insane. Why are there no protests against this? Why? That's crazy. Now, you and I, we have the right to an opinion. And yes, we even actually have the right to make things up. Alex Jones says it all the time. Now, you and I also have the right to go and find people that are making things up and actually present facts to counter their made-up stories. And they can do the same to us, by the way. If they think we're running fake news, well, they can come through and they can make their own video and they can say, no, you're the one making fake news, and here's why. You know what that's called? That's called free speech. We all have it, and we should not let the government be able to dictate what we can report based on threats of, oh, we'll pull your license. This is awful. Now, here's my last thought here. I think a lot of you are thinking, why are you defending the media so much? Well, it's because we need a free press. There's no doubt, though, that the media has completely lost legitimacy. And there's no doubt that a lot of it is their fault. This is why I point that out whenever I do a segment on the media. Yes, there's a reason that people do not trust the media. I get it. But see, here's the thing. I want the media to be better. I want to make the media better. I don't want to destroy the media. Okay? I do want media to not create fake news. I do want the media to go and vet their sources better. I want it to be better. I want to fix it. Now, the people who want to give Trump the power to punish these outlets, all they want to do is they want to destroy media that is mean to him. Now, for you guys, if you're still watching and say you actually do get that goal, which I know is impossible at this point, but say you get it anyway, right? Well, okay, that happens. Then we get a Democrat in office. Well, then there goes Fox News. Oh, there goes Breitbart. There goes InfoWars. Oh, yeah, they'd be the first one to go. Oh, fake news. Get rid of them. There goes all your media. My point is, be careful what you wish for. How about we not destroy the Constitution? How about we not destroy the free press? How about we make it better? How about we fix the problem without creating an actual new problem? Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.